So this is from the era where IBM PC compatibles had pretty much broken away from IBM, and there were relative companies that were pretty much building on demand with whatever components were giving good price performance from Taiwan that month. So when you ordered a computer, they'd put it together just for you with a specific configuration of graphics card and hard drive and processor and so on. This is from the first era where CD-ROMs and sound cards and speakers were standard parts of PCs. So I had a student with this computer. They just now were looking at Encarta 95, the online multimedia encyclopedia that was widely bundled with computers and multimedia expansion kits in that era. And people like to play Tetris on it and so on. So this is Windows 3.1. The Windows 3 family was the first widely used Windows. But it's fun because when you go to Windows 95, there's a start button in the corner. It's kind of actually not that different from the Windows that people use now. But Windows 3 had a completely different way of doing it with this program manager and icon groups to start programs, and there's no start menu. The buttons are all different and so on. So people often like the experience. If they were around in that period, it's often very nostalgic for them. But if they're the students, they're like, this is weird. You know, this is kind of Windows, but it is like acting very strangely. And this is something that I mentioned in the book. So it's still a kind of fun game. Sometimes I kill time with it while students are doing their projects. The solitaire game that was bundled with Windows. So at the time, people would have been using IBM compatible PCs primarily with the MS-DOS, with programs like WordPerfect and Lotus 123 that were pretty much text-based. And Microsoft wanted to get people over to the graphical environment using a mouse, and this experience that is very similar to what Apple pioneered with the Macintosh. So the solitaire game is actually it's beautifully designed. The students read about the graphic designer Susan Kerr, who did work with Apple on a freelance basis for Mac Paint and some other things, and then worked with Windows on the design of the card decks and the icons and so on, which is why Windows 3 actually has got some really nicely designed little icons. So that's an example for the students. They get to see this kind of part of computer history they probably never thought about, like, so where do the icons come from? And they've got a reading that kind of puts a human behind that in an unexpected way. So Microsoft wanted you to get the hang of doing basic mouse operations like drag and drop and double clicking. So instead of a tutorial, they put the solitaire game there. And you know, in the early 90s, when Windows 3 became popular, you would just see a lot of people in offices just sitting around playing solitaire instead of whatever they were supposed to be doing. But it was obviously successful in that respect because people got familiar with the mouse and with the basic conventions of the graphical user interface.